Life seemed perfect for Uloma. She had a loving family, a good school, and a best friend she could rely on. But life, as they say, is full of surprises, some good and some not so good. Once upon a time, in a beautiful town called Oka in Anambra State, there lived a beautiful young girl named Oloma. She was the only child of her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Iloka, who loved her dearly. Uloma's parents were hard-working government workers. While they were not very rich, they had a comfortable life. They made sure Uloma never lacked the things she needed. Uloma had spent most of her childhood in another town, but her family recently moved to Oka because her parents were transferred to work there. The move was a big change for Uloma. She had to leave her old school and friends behind and start all over again in a new place. Her parents enrolled her in a popular school called Hilltop Academy, one of the best schools in Oka. It was known for its neat classrooms, kind teachers, and smart students. Uloma was nervous on her first day of school, but she told herself she would try her best to fit in and do well in her studies. When Uloma arrived at Hilltop Academy, she was introduced to her class. The teacher, Mrs. Anayo, smiled warmly at her. "Class, this is our new student, Uloma Iloka. Let's make her feel welcome," Mrs. Anayo said. The students clapped, and Uloma smiled shyly. She felt a little better. As the days went by, Uloma worked hard to adjust to her new school. She made sure her studies were her top priority. She woke up early every day, completed her homework on time, and always paid attention in class. Her determination to succeed impressed her teachers. Soon, Uloma made a best friend named Chizia. Chizia was a cheerful and friendly girl who always made others laugh. She was the first student to talk to Uloma and offer to show her around the school. "Hi, Uloma, want to sit with me at lunch?" Chizia had asked on Uloma's first day. From that moment on, the two girls became inseparable. They ate lunch together, did assignments together, and walked home together after school. Chizia lived just a few streets away from Uloma's house, so they often visited each other during the weekends. One sunny afternoon, as they sat under a mango tree near the school compound, Chizia turned to Uloma and said, "Let's promise to be best friends forever. No matter what happens, we will always have each other's back." Uloma smiled and held out her pinky finger. "I promise," she said. The two girls laughed as they sealed their promise with a pinky swear. Life seemed perfect for Uloma. She had a loving family, a good school, and a best friend she could rely on. But life, as they say, is full of surprises, some good and some not so good. One day, Uloma noticed that her mother, Agnes, was not just her usual cheerful self. She often looked tired and weak. At first, Uloma thought her mother was just overworking herself. But things got worse. Agnes started missing work and spent most of her time in bed. "Uloma, take care of your mother," Mr. Iloka would often say as he hurried to work. Uloma did her best to help around the house. She cooked meals, cleaned, and made sure her mother was comfortable. But despite her efforts, her mother's health continued to decline. One evening, Uloma overheard her parents talking in hushed tones. "Agnes, we need to take you to the hospital," her father said. "This sickness is getting worse." "I'll be fine," her mother replied weakly. "We can't afford the hospital bills right now." Hearing those words broke Uloma's heart. She wished there was something she could do to help. Eventually, Agnes was taken to the hospital, but the doctors could not save her. She passed away, leaving Uloma and her father devastated. The once lively home became quiet and somber. Uloma missed her mother's warm hugs and gentle voice. Mazi Iloka, as her father was fondly called, tried his best to stay strong for Uloma, but the loss of his wife took a toll on him. He often fell sick and had to visit the hospital frequently. Uloma took on the role of caregiver, looking after her father while still focusing on her studies. Despite the challenges, Uloma remained determined to succeed. She completed her secondary school education with good grades. However, her dream of going to the university seemed far out of reach. There was no money for the tuition, and the little pension her father received was barely enough to cover their living expenses. Uloma decided to stay at home and help her father. She used some of the pension money to start a small provision store in their town. The store became a source of income for them, and Uloma managed it with dedication. Every morning, she would open the store, arrange the items neatly, and attend to customers with a smile. Running the store kept her busy, but she often thought about what her life could have been if her mother were still alive or if they had enough money for her to continue her education. One day, while attending to customers at the store, a young man named Eguchuku walked in. He was tall, with a kind face and a warm smile. He introduced himself as a fabric seller in the market and struck up a conversation with Uloma. Your store is well organized, Eguchuku said, looking around. You must be very hardworking. Thank you, Uloma replied, feeling a little shy. Over time, Eguchuku became a regular visitor to the store. He would often stop by to chat with Uloma and buy a few items. It wasn't long before he confessed his feelings for her. Uloma, I admire your strength and kindness, Eguchuku said one evening. I want to spend my life with someone like you. Will you marry me? Uloma was taken by surprise. She liked Eguchuku and admired his hardworking nature, but she didn't expect him to propose so soon. After giving it some thought and discussing it with her father, she said yes. Their wedding was a simple but joyful occasion. Friends, family, and neighbors gathered to celebrate their union. Uloma's father, though frail, was present and gave his blessings to the couple. After their marriage, Uloma and Eguchuku settled into a happy life together. God blessed them with a son, whom they named Nonso. The house was once again filled with laughter and joy. Uloma's father continued to live with them, and they cared for him as best as they could. Uloma often helped her husband at his fabric shop in the market. They worked as a team, supporting each other through life's challenges. She felt grateful to have a husband who loved and valued her. Uloma's days were filled with gratitude and hard work. Her life was now centered around her small provision store, her family, and her supportive husband, Eguchuku. Their relationship grew stronger as they spent time together, supporting one another in everything they did. Eguchuku was not just a hardworking man, but a kind and generous one. He was well known in the community for selling quality fabrics in the market. His shop, though small, was always bustling with customers. People trusted him because of his honesty and cheerful demeanor. Uloma often accompanied her husband to the market to help out. She learned how to attend to the customers, manage sales, and even select fabrics that people loved. It was not just easy, especially with her provision store to manage, but she enjoyed working alongside her husband. They made a great team. and their efforts paid off as their businesses began to grow steadily. At home, life was filled with joy. Their little son Nonso brought laughter to their lives with his innocent questions and playful nature. Mazi Loka, Uloma's father, was a proud grandfather. Despite his health challenges, he found happiness in the warm, loving environment his daughter had built. One sunny afternoon, as Uloma was helping her husband arrange fabrics in the market, a familiar face walked into their shop. It was her best friend, Chizia. Uloma's face lit up with excitement. Chizia! What a surprise! Uloma exclaimed, rushing to hug her friend. Uloma, look at you. You haven't changed one bit, Chizia said with a wide smile. After they exchanged pleasantries, Uloma introduced Eguchuku to her friend. This is my husband Eguchuku, she said proudly. It's a pleasure to meet you, Eguchuku said warmly, extending his hand. The pleasure is mine, Chizia replied, shaking his own hand. The three of them spent the next few minutes catching up. Uloma and Chizia reminisced about their school days and shared stories of what had happened in their lives since then. As they talked, Uloma noticed that her friend seemed a bit distracted. She looked around the shop and then at Uloma's husband with an unreadable expression. Uloma brushed it off, thinking her friend was simply overwhelmed by the reunion. Later that day, Uloma and Chizia sat together in the living room of Uloma's home. Nonso was playing with his toys nearby, and Mazi Loka was napping in his room. Uloma, you are so lucky, Chizia said suddenly, her voice filled with a mix of admiration and sadness. Lucky? Why do you say that? Uloma asked, surprised. You have everything. A loving husband, a beautiful son, and a peaceful home. Chizia replied, I'm happy for you, but sometimes I wonder when my own happiness will come. Uloma felt a pang of sadness for her friend. She knew how much Chizia wanted to settle down and start her own family. Don't worry, Chizia, Uloma said gently. The right person will come into your life at the right time. Just be patient and don't rush into anything. Chizia nodded, though she didn't seem fully convinced. Over the next few weeks, Chizia visited Uloma often. The two friends grew even closer, sharing their dreams, worries, and joys. Uloma enjoyed having her best friend around, and Eguchuku was always polite and welcoming to their guests. One day, during one of her visits, Chizia confided in Uloma. Uloma, I think I'm ready to get married, she said, her voice filled with determination. That's wonderful, Uloma exclaimed. Have you met someone special? Not yet, Chizia admitted, but I'm hoping to meet someone soon. Do you know anyone who might be a good match? Uloma thought for a moment. She remembered one of her husband's friends, Okonkwo, who lived in the same neighborhood. Okonkwo was a cheerful and hardworking man who had often mentioned that he was looking for a good woman to marry. Actually, I might know someone, Uloma said. He's a friend of my husband. His name is Okonkwo, and he's a nice man. Would you like to meet him? Chizia's face lit up. Yes, I would love to meet him. That evening, Uloma discussed the idea with her husband. Eguchuku was supportive and agreed to arrange a meeting between his friend and Chizia. The following weekend, Uloma invited Chizia and Okonkwo to her home. The two were introduced and immediately hit it off. They spent hours talking and getting to know each other. By the end of the evening, it was clear that they had a strong connection. Over the next few months, Chizia and Okonkwo grew closer. They started spending more time together, attending community events and visiting each other's homes. Uloma was thrilled to see her best friend so happy. One sunny afternoon, Okonkwo proposed to Chizia. He got down on one knee in front of her and said, Chizia, you've brought so much joy into my life. Will you do me the honor of being my wife? With tears of happiness in her eyes, Chizia said yes. Their wedding was a joyful celebration, filled with laughter, music, and dancing. Uloma was the happiest guest, knowing that she had played a part in bringing her friend and Okonkwo together. After the wedding, Chizia and Okonkwo moved into a house just across the street from Uloma and Eguchuku. The two friends were now neighbors, and their bond grew even stronger. Life seemed perfect once again. Uloma and Chizia did everything together. They cooked, shopped, and even attended community meetings as a team. People in the neighborhood often remarked on their close friendship, saying it was rare to see two women so devoted to each other. Months later, both friends received joyful news. Chizia discovered she was pregnant, and a few months after, Uloma also became pregnant. The two women were overjoyed and supported each other throughout their pregnancy journey. Their bond became the talk of the town. Everyone admired their friendship and the love they shared for their families. Uloma often joked, "Our children will grow up to be best friends just like us." Life for Uloma and her best friend, Chizia, continued to bloom like the colorful flowers in a garden. Their friendship had grown even deeper now that they were not just best friends, but neighbors and soon to be mothers. The bond they shared was rare, and everyone in their community admired it. Uloma and Chizia spent their days taking care of their families, managing their homes, and preparing for the arrival of their babies. They often sat under the mango tree in Uloma's yard, talking about their hopes and dreams for their children. Uloma, Chizia said one afternoon, rubbing her round belly, "I pray my child grows up to be as hardworking and kind as you." Uloma smiled and placed her hand on her own belly. "And I pray my child will have your cheerful spirit and determination, Chizia. Imagine if our children grow up to be as close as we are." The two women laughed, their laughter echoing through the compound. Their friendship brought them comfort and strength, especially during this special time in their lives. As the months went by, their pregnancies progressed. Eguchuku and Okonkwo, their husbands, were both very supportive. Eguchuku would often massage Uloma's feet after a long day, while Okonkwo made sure Chizia had everything she needed. The two families were like one big happy family, sharing meals and celebrating every little joy together. One rainy morning, as Uloma was preparing breakfast, she heard a knock on her door. It was Chizia, looking worried. "Uloma, I think it's time," she said, holding her belly and breathing heavily. Uloma quickly called Okonkwo and Eguchuku, and together they rushed Chizia to the hospital. Hours later, the cries of a new baby filled the air. Chizia had given birth to a healthy baby boy whom they named Ebuka. Uloma was overjoyed for her friend. She stayed by her side, helping her with the baby and ensuring she had everything she needed. "Thank you, Uloma," Chizia said one evening, cradling her baby. "You've always been there for me. I don't know what I would do without you." "That's what friends are for," Uloma replied, smiling. A few months later, it was Uloma's turn. One sunny afternoon, as she was sitting in her living room, she felt a sharp pain in her stomach. She knew it was time. Eguchuku quickly called for help, and they rushed to the hospital. After hours of labor, Uloma gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. They named him Osinachi, which means he is from God. The birth of Osinachi brought even more joy to the family. Eguchuku was over the moon, showering Uloma with love and gratitude. "You are the best thing that has ever happened to me," he would often told her. With two new babies in their lives, Uloma and Chizia's friendship grew even stronger. They shared tips on motherhood, helped each other with chores, and took turns babysitting. Their children, Ebuka and Osinachi, became playmates, crawling around together and giggling at every little thing. As the years went by, The two families continued to thrive. Uloma and Eguchuku worked hard to provide for their children, ensuring they had the best education and opportunities. Nonso, their first son, excelled in school and made his parents proud. On the other hand, Chizia began facing challenges in her marriage. Okonkwo, who had once been a hardworking man, started spending more time gambling than working. His business suffered, and they began struggling to make ends meet. Uloma, I don't know what to do, Chizia confided one evening as they sat under the mango tree. Okonkwo has lost so much money, and I'm scared we will lose everything. Uloma held her friend's hand and said, don't worry, Chizia. Things will get better. You are a strong woman, and I'm here for you. True to her word, Uloma supported her friend in every way she could. She often gave Chizia items from her provision store and lent her money to keep her household running. Despite her struggles, Chizia remained grateful for Uloma's kindness. Meanwhile, Ebuka, Chizia's son, began to show signs of trouble, unlike Nonso and Osinachi, who were focused on their studies. Ebuka was not interested in school. He spent most of his time playing and getting into mischief. This worried Chizia deeply. I don't know what to do with Ebuka, she said to Uloma one day. He refuses to listen to me and doesn't take school seriously. Uloma tried to encourage her, saying, every child is different, Chizia. Don't give up on him. Keep guiding him and he will find his way. Despite Uloma's encouragement, things did not improve. Ebuka's behavior became a source of frustration for his mother. She often compared him to Nonso and Osinachi, who were doing well in school and making their parents proud. As the years went by, Nonso graduated from secondary school with excellent grades. His parents were overjoyed and worked hard to send him to the university. Osinachi, who was following in his brother's footsteps, was also excelling in his studies. For Uloma, life was filled with blessings. Her children were her pride and joy, and her husband continued to shower her with love and affection. She often thanked God for her family and the life they had built together. But for Chizia, life was becoming more difficult. Okonkwo's gambling had left their family in financial ruin, and Ebuka's lack of interest in school added to her worries. Despite this, she tried to put on a brave face and continued to lean on Uloma for support. One evening, as the sun set over the village, Uloma and Chizia sat together again in Uloma's living room. Their children were playing outside, their laughter filling the air. Uloma, you are so lucky, Chizia said, her voice tinged with sadness. Lucky? Why do you say that? Uloma asked, surprised. You have a husband who loves you, children who are doing well, and a peaceful life. Sometimes I wonder why my life turned out so differently. Chizia replied, tears welling up in her eyes. Uloma felt a pang of sadness for her friend. She reached out and held her hand. Chizia, life is full of ups and downs. You've always been strong, and I know things will get better for you. Just keep praying and believing. Chizia nodded, wiping her tears. She tried to smile, but deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling of envy that had begun to grow in her heart. Little did Uloma know, this moment marked the beginning of a change in their friendship, a change that would test the strength of their bond and alter their lives forever. Uloma's life was a picture of happiness and contentment. She had a loving husband, two wonderful sons, Nonso and Osinachi, and a cozy home filled with laughter and peace. She worked tirelessly to support her family, and her efforts alongside her husband's were paying off. But in the home of her best friend Chizia, things were different. Chizia was drowning in frustration and disappointment. Her husband, Okonkwo, had gambled away their savings and lost his once thriving business. They were struggling to make ends meet, and their son, Ebuka, was turning into a source of constant worry. Why does it feel like my life is falling apart? Chizia often asked herself. Uloma noticed her friend's struggles and did everything she could to help. She gave Chizia items from her provision store, lent her money when she could, and often offered words of encouragement. Don't give up, Chizia, Uloma would say. Things will get better, and I believe in you. Although Chizia turned to Uloma outwardly, her heart began to change. Each act of kindness from Uloma felt like a reminder of her own failures. She couldn't help but compare her life to Uloma's. Why is her life so perfect while mine is falling apart? Chizia thought bitterly. As days turned into weeks, these thoughts began to fester into Chizia's mind. She started to envy Uloma's success, her happy family, her children's achievements. One sunny afternoon, while sitting in her small living room, Chizia stared at the empty shelves of her provision store. Her husband Okonkwo was out again, likely gambling or drinking, and Ebuka was nowhere to be found. The house felt empty and cold. Her thoughts turned to Uloma, who was likely enjoying a peaceful afternoon with her loving husband and children. The thought made her chest tighten with bitterness. This isn't fair, she muttered to herself. I deserve a good life too. I deserve happiness. Her mind wandered back to the day Uloma had introduced her to Okonkwo. She began to twist the memory in her mind, convincing herself that Uloma must have known Okonkwo was a gambler and had deliberately set her up to fall. Uloma and her husband knew what kind of man Okonkwo was. She told herself, they made me marry him because they wanted to see me suffer. The more she thought about it, the angrier she became. She began to plan how to make Uloma's life as miserable as hers. As the festive season approached, Uloma was busy preparing for Christmas. She decorated her home, stocked her store with festive items, and planned a small family celebration. Chizia, on the other hand, was consumed by her bitterness. She decided that Christmas would be the perfect time to execute her plan. I will make her regret ever being better than me, she thought. On Christmas Eve, Chizia prepared a pot of stew and poisoned it. Her plan was to deliver the stew to Uloma's family as a gesture of goodwill, knowing they would eat it during their celebration. However, fate had other plans. As she finished cooking, Okonkwo stumbled into the house, drunk as usual. He saw the pot of stew on the stove and decided to help himself. At least I can eat something decent for once, he muttered, ladling the stew onto a plate. Chizia was outside in the backyard, tending to some chores, when she heard the clatter of dishes. She rushed inside, only to find Okonkwo finishing the poisoned stew. No! What have you done? She screamed, but it was too late. Okonkwo looked up at her, confused. What's wrong with you? He slurred. Realizing there was nothing she could do, Chizia quickly cleaned up the evidence and led her husband to bed, pretending everything was normal. Early the next morning, she found him lifeless in bed. Her scream echoed through the village, drawing neighbors to their home. Ebuka, their son, was the first to discover his father's body and cried out in shock. Papa, wake up! Please wake up! He wailed. When the villagers gathered, Chizia played the role of a grieving widow, crying and mourning loudly. No one suspected her involvement in Okonkwo's death. They believed he had died from excessive drinking. After Okonkwo's burial, life seemed to return to normal for the community, but not for Chizia. She felt a twisted sense of satisfaction knowing her first plan had partially worked, even though it didn't affect Uloma directly. This time, I will make sure Uloma and her family suffer, she vowed. One evening, as Uloma prepared dinner for her family, she decided to send some food to Eguchuku at the market. As he often worked late, she dished out his favorite meal and packed it neatly in a basket. Unknown to her, Chizia had been watching her every move. As soon as Uloma stepped out of the kitchen, Chizia sneaked in through the back door and poisoned the food. She quickly left the house unnoticed. Later that evening, Eguchuku ate the meal in his shop. A few hours later, as he was attending to his last customer for the day, he suddenly collapsed. The market was thrown into chaos as people rushed to his aid. Despite their efforts, Eguchuku passed away before they could get him to the hospital. When the news reached Uloma, she was devastated. She couldn't believe her loving husband, the father of her children, was gone. The days following Eguchuku's sudden death were heavy and sorrowful for Uloma and her children. The once joyful household was now filled with silence and grief. Nonso and Osinachi, who had been making strides in their lives in Lagos, were called back home for their father's burial. When Nonso and Osinachi arrived, their hearts sank at the sight of their grieving mother. She looked tired, broken, and much older than they remembered. The pain of losing her husband was evident in her eyes. Mama, we are here now, Nonso said, placing his hand on her shoulder. We will get through this together. Uloma nodded, tears streaming down her face. Her son's presence brought her some comfort, but the emptiness left by Eguchuku's death was hard to ignore. The burial ceremony was a somber affair. Friends, family, and neighbors gathered to pay their respect to Eguchuku, a man who had touched many lives with his kindness and hard work. Among the mourners was Chizia, who played her part as the grieving best friend, shedding fake tears and offering comfort to Uloma. Uloma, I'm here for you, she said, holding Uloma's hand. Thank you, Chizia, Uloma replied, her voice trembling. She felt grateful for her friend's support, unaware of the dark thoughts hiding behind Chizia's kind words. After the burial, life began to slowly return to normal. Nonso and Osinachi stayed with their mother for a while, helping her settle into her new routine. Osinachi, the youngest, had just completed his final year at the university before returning home for the burial. His graduation was a proud moment for the family, though it was overshadowed by their grief. Mama, Papa would have been so proud of us, Osinachi said one evening as they sat together. He would, Uloma replied with a sad smile. Both of you had made us proud. And we are so proud of you people. Nonso, who had graduated earlier and was already establishing himself in Lagos, encouraged his younger brother to join him in the city. Lagos is full of opportunities, Osinachi, he said. We can build something great together. Osinachi agreed, and after spending a few more weeks with their mother, the brothers prepared to return to Lagos. Before leaving, Uloma handed them some money that Eguchuku had saved for them. Your father wanted you to use this to build your future, she said. Make him proud. We will, Mama, Nonso promised, and we will take care of you too. As Nonso and Osinachi prepared to leave, Chizia approached them with a request. Nonso, Osinachi, she began hesitantly. I was wondering if you could help me with something. What is it, Auntie Chizia? Nonso asked politely. It's about my son, Ebuka. She said, things haven't been easy for us, and he hasn't been able to find his way here in the village. I was hoping you could take him with you to Lagos and teach him something, maybe business or a trade. He needs guidance. The brothers exchanged a glance. They understood her concern, but were hesitant to take on such responsibility at this moment. Auntie, we understand, Nonso said carefully, but right now, we are still trying to put things in order. Lagos is not an easy place, and we need to settle ourselves first before we can bring anyone else into the picture. Osinachi added, maybe when we come back to the village next time, we can revisit this. For now, it's best he stays here. Chizia forced a smile. I understand, she said, though her voice carried a hint of disappointment. Thank you for considering it. The brothers promised to think about it and assured they would revisit the topic during their next visit. With that, they bid farewell to their family and returned to Lagos. When Chizia returned home, she was sitting with anger. She slammed the door shut. and paced the room, her thoughts racing. They don't want to help my son, she muttered bitterly. They just want to keep their success to themselves while we suffer. Her envy and resentment towards Uloma and her family reached a boiling point. She convinced herself that Uloma's sons had no intention of helping Ebuka and that they were deliberately trying to keep her family down. How dare they? She thought. I will make them regret this. Consumed by her anger, Chizia decided to take matters into her own hands. That evening, she went to a witch doctor in a neighboring village seeking revenge. The witch doctor, an old man with a menacing appearance, listened as Chizia poured out her grievances. They ruined my life, she said angrily. Now, I want them to suffer like I have. The witch doctor nodded slowly. There are ways to make them suffer, he said, but it will come with a price. I'll do whatever it takes, Chizia replied, her voice firm. The witch doctor handed her a small bundle wrapped in a black cloth. Use this in Uloma and her children, he instructed. Sprinkle it around her house and on her shop. Once you do, her children will forget her, and her business will crumble. She will suffer just as she wished. Chizia took the bundle with trembling hands, her mind filled with dark thoughts. She returned home and waited for the right moment to carry out her plan. Over the next few days, Chizia began her sinister work. She sprinkled the contents of the bundle around Uloma's house and shops, whispering curses under her breath. Soon, strange things began to happen. Uloma's shops, which had been thriving, mysteriously caught fire one evening, leaving her with nothing but ashes. Her health also began to deteriorate, and she lost her eyesight. She could no longer see the world around her or care for herself properly. In Lagos, Nonso and Osinachi, who had been deeply connected to their mother, suddenly stopped thinking about her. It was as if a wall had been placed between them and their family in the village. They focused entirely on their business, which began to flourish. Their company, Blue Peak Homes, quickly became one of the most successful real estate firms in Lagos. They were making money, living lavishly, and gaining popularity. However, they rarely thought about their mother or her struggles. Uloma, now blind and helpless, relied on the kindness of neighbors to survive. She often sat alone, wondering why her sons had abandoned her. Chizia, pretending to be a supportive friend, visited Uloma occasionally, offering words of encouragement while secretly reveling in her suffering. Don't worry, Uloma, she would say. Your sons will come back to you one day. Thank you, my friend, Uloma would reply, grateful for her friend's support, unaware that Chizia was the architect of her problem. Months turned into years, and the pain in Uloma's life deepened. Blind and helpless, she relied on her neighbors for food and basic care. Her once thriving provision shop was gone, and her husband's fabric shop was burnt down. The cheerful home she had built with her late husband, Eguchuku, was now a shadow of its former self. Nonso and Osinachi, meanwhile, were living entirely different lives in Lagos. Their real estate company, Blue Peak Homes, had become a household name. They had expanded their business, owned luxury cars, and lived in expensive mansions. However, their hearts seemed to have grown cold towards their mother and their humble beginnings in the village. Whenever someone brought up their mother, they quickly dismissed the topic. Let's not talk about that now, Nonso would say. Osinachi would nod in agreement, as though their mother no longer existed in their world. Back in the village, Uloma continued to hold on to hope despite her blindness and struggles. She believed her sons would one day return to her. Chizia, on the other hand, was living her life with a twisted sense of satisfaction. She frequently visited Uloma's house, pretending to be the caring best friend. She brought small gifts and comforted her friend with words like, Everything will be okay. Your sons will come back one day. Inside, however, she was rejoicing. She watched as Uloma struggled and her sons remained distant. This is what she deserves. Chiza thought to herself. She had it all, and now she has nothing. Ebuka, her son, was no better. He had become a nuisance in the community. He spent his days wandering aimlessly, getting into trouble, and making a mockery of himself. The villagers saw him as a lost cause, and Chizia's frustration with him grew daily. "You're just like your father," she would often yell at him, "a useless man with no future." Ebuka felt trapped in his own misery. He often thought about running away to start a new life, but had no means to do so. Meanwhile, in Lagos, Noso and Osinachi continued to enjoy their success. They were well known and respected in the business world. They attended glamorous events, signed big contracts, and lived lavish lifestyles. But something was missing. Though they had all the material wealth they could dream of, a void lingered in their hearts. One evening, as they celebrated yet another successful deal, Nonso poured himself a glass of wine and sat quietly in the corner of their mansion. "Do you ever feel like something is wrong?" he asked his brother. Osinachi looked at him puzzled. "What do you mean, bro?" "I don't know," Nonso replied. "It's like we've forgotten something important, something we shouldn't have." Osinachi shrugged. "Maybe it's just the stress of work. We've been busy lately." Nonso nodded, but the feeling didn't go away. One fateful afternoon, Ebuka decided he couldn't take it anymore. He was tired of being labeled a failure and wanted to change his life. While his mother was at the market, he sneaked into her room, determined to find some money or valuables to sell so he could leave the village. As he searched through her belongings, he came across a small wrapped bundle hidden in a corner. Curious, he opened it and was horrified by what he found. Inside were strange objects, charms, cowrie shells, and other items he couldn't recognize, but knows it's a black magic. "What is this?" Ebuka whispered to himself, his hand trembling. It didn't take long for him to piece things together. He realized his mother had been using these items to harm others. He stormed out of the house, shouting at the top of his lungs, "My mother has tied my destiny. She's the reason my life is like this." The villagers quickly gathered around, alarmed by the commotion. "What is going on, Ebuka?" one of them asked. "My mother is a witch," Ebuka cried. "She's the reason everything in my life has gone wrong. Look at what I found in her room." He held up the charm for everyone to see. The crowd gasped in disbelief. As Chizia returned from the market and saw the gathering crowd outside her house, she knew something was wrong. When she spotted the charms in Ebuka's hands, her heart sank. "What have you done?" she screamed, rushing towards him. "You are the one who has done this to me," Ebuka shouted back. "You tied my destiny, and now everyone knows." The villagers turned to Chizia demanding answers. "Is this true, Chizia?" one of them asked. "Have you been using charms?" Overwhelmed by fear and guilt, Chizia dropped to her knees. "I will confess! I will confess! I will confess!" she wailed. Through tears, she admitted to everything. She revealed how she had poisoned Okonkwo, her husband, killed Uloma's husband as well, and used black magic to ruin Uloma's family. "I was jealous," she cried. "I couldn't stand to see her happy while I suffered. I wanted her to feel the pain I felt." The villagers listened in shock and disgust. As Chizia finished her confession, she collapsed to the ground and stopped moving. "She's dead," someone shouted. At that exact moment in Lagos, Noso and Osinachi were celebrating another business deal. Suddenly froze. Noso dropped his glass of wine and Osinachi clutched his chest. "What's happening?" Osinachi asked, panic in his voice. "I don't know," Noso replied. "It feels like something just changed. Their minds became flooded with memories of their mother and their life in the village. For the first time in years, they realized they hadn't thought about her in so long. How could we forget Mama? Nonso said, his voice filled with guilt. We need to go back to the village, Osinasi said. Right now. The brothers wasted no time. They packed their bags and left for the village early the next morning. When Nonso and Osinachi arrived in the village, they were heartbroken by what they saw. Their once strong and cheerful mother was now frail, blind, and living in poverty. Mama, Nonso said, falling to his knees beside her. Uloma turned her head towards the voice. Who is that? She asked quickly. It's me, Nonso, he said, tears streaming down his face. And Osinachi, we are here, Mama. We are so sorry. Uloma reached out and they both held her hands. My sons, she said softly, tears falling from her blind eyes. I thought you had forgotten me. We didn't forget you, Mama, Osinachi said. We were cursed. It wasn't our fault. Please forgive us. Uloma hugged them tightly, her heart filled with relief and love. I forgive you, she said. You are my children, and nothing will ever change that. The emotional reunion between Uloma and her sons, Nonso and Osinachi, was a bittersweet moment. The neighbors who gathered around Uloma's modest home wiped tears from their eyes. Many had witnessed her suffering over the years and silently prayed for this day to come. Mama, Nonso said, still holding her free hands, we can't believe we stayed away from you for so long. Please forgive us. My sons, Uloma said softly, her voice trembling with emotion. I forgave you the moment I realized something wasn't right. You are my children, and I will always love you. Osinachi hugged her tightly, whispering, we will never leave you again, Mama. Never. The sight of her sons brought Uloma a sense of joy she hadn't felt in years. Though she couldn't see them, their voices were enough to fill her heart with hope again. As the family held onto each other, one of the elderly women in the crowd stepped forward. Nonso, she began, your mother has suffered greatly in your absence. Many of us helped her when we could, but it was never enough. Another man added, we knew something strange was happening, but we didn't have the courage to question it. She often talked about you and prayed for your return. Their words filled the brothers with even more guilt. How had they let their mother endure such hardships while they lived in luxury? We owe you, Mama. We owe you so much. Nonso said, we need to make things right. The brothers wasted no time. They decided to take Uloma back to Lagos with them so they could care for her properly. Mama, we need to pack your things. Osinachi said gently, you are coming with us. We will take you to the best doctors to help with your eyes. But what about the house? Uloma asked hesitantly. We will handle everything. Nonso assured her. Right now, your health is the most important thing. With the help of the neighbors, they gathered Uloma's belongings. As they left the village, the neighbors waved them off, praying for their full recovery and a brighter future. When they arrived in Lagos, Nonso and Osinachi immediately took Uloma to one of the best eye hospitals in the city. The doctors examined her and explained that she would need surgery to restore her vision. It will take some time, but the chances of her seeing again are very high. The doctor said. The brothers were overjoyed. They spared no expense to ensure their mother received the best. While waiting for the surgery, they brought Uloma to their mansion. The spacious house was a far cry from the small home she had lived in for years. Mama, this is your new home now, Nonso said, leading her to a beautifully furnished bedroom. Uloma ran her hands along the soft bedspread and the smooth walls. Though she couldn't see, she could feel the love her sons had poured into making her comfortable. Thank you, my children, she said, tears streaming down her cheeks. This is more than I've ever dreamed of. While Uloma rested and prepared for her surgery, Nonso and Osinachi began planning for the future. They wanted to ensure their mother's happiness and security. We need to make her feel loved and valued, Osinachi said one evening as they sat in the living room. Absolutely. Nonso agreed. We also need to find a way to honor Papa's memory. Everything we've achieved is because of the foundation he and Mama gave us. The brothers decided to build a grand house in the village as a tribute to their father and a home for their family. They wanted it to be a place where their mother could visit and feel proud of all they had achieved together. Back in the village, the news of Chizia's death spread quickly. Many villagers couldn't believe the revelations about her dark deeds. How could she do this to her best friend? One woman asked. It's a shame. Another one added. Uloma didn't deserve any of this. Meanwhile, Ebuka, who had exposed his mother's secret, decided to leave the village. He was tired of being associated with her evil acts and wanted to start fresh somewhere new. A few weeks later, the day of Uloma's surgery arrived. Nonso and Osinachi stayed by her side, offering words of encouragement. You're going to be fine, Mama, Osinachi said, holding her hand. I'm nervous, Uloma admitted, her voice shaky. Don't be, Nonso said reassuringly. We are here for you, Mama. The surgery took several hours, and the brothers waited anxiously in the hospital lobby. When the doctor finally emerged, he had good news. The surgery went well, the doctor said with a smile. She will need some time to heal, but her vision should return gradually. The brothers thanked the doctor and rushed to see their mother. Uloma was still groggy, but smiled weakly when she heard their voices. Did it work? She asked softly. It did, Mama, Nonso said, his voice thick with emotion. You're going to see again. Over the next few months, Uloma's vision began to improve. The first time she opened her eyes and saw her sons clearly, she couldn't contain her joy. My children, she said, tears streaming down her face. You've grown so much. I can see you. Nonso and Osinachi hugged her tightly, their hearts filled with gratitude. We'll never let you suffer again, Mama, Osinachi said, and we will make sure you have everything you need. Nonso added. Uloma's recovery brought new life to the family. She spent her days enjoying the comfort of their home. With their mother's health restored, Nonso and Osinachi began thinking about their own futures. They decided it was time to settle down and start their own families. What if we have a double wedding? Osinachi suggested one evening. Nonso laughed. That would be amazing. Mama would be so happy. The brothers reached out to their girlfriends, who had stood by them through thick and thin. Both women were thrilled at the idea of a joint wedding. Uloma, upon hearing the news, was overjoyed. I've prayed for this day, she said. I can't wait to see my sons start their own families. The wedding day was a grand affair. Friends, family, and business associates gathered to celebrate the union of Nonso and Osinachi with their respective brides. The ceremony was filled with laughter, music, and dancing. During the reception, Uloma gave a heartfelt speech. Today, I am the happiest woman on earth, she said, her voice filled with emotion. I have seen my sons grow into men I am proud of. I have seen them find love and build lives of their own. I thank God for bringing us back together. The crowd erupted in applause, and many wiped tears from their eyes. With the wedding behind them, Nonso and Osinachi continued to build their lives, ensuring their mother was always cared for and surrounded by love. As Uloma looked around her family, she felt a deep sense of gratitude. Despite all the challenges and pain, love and forgiveness had triumphed in the end. Uloma sat in the spacious living room of her son's mansion in Lagos, a smile lighting up her face. The sound of laughter echoed through the house as Nonso and Osinachi played a board game with their wives. Uloma's heart swelled with pride and gratitude. It felt like a dream she had prayed for and one that had finally come true. Her mind drifted back to the difficult years she had endured. Losing her husband, Battling blindness and being abandoned by her sons had been painful, but here she was now, surrounded by love, joy, and the family she thought she had lost forever. Uloma's sons had gone above and beyond to make up for the lost time. They ensured she lacked nothing, and they treated her like a queen. Even her daughters-in-law adored her, often sitting by her side to hear her stories of the past. Mama, you're so strong, Nonso's wife said one afternoon. I hope I can be as strong as you when I face challenges. Uloma smiled and placed a hand on her dad's shoulder. Strength comes from trusting God and never giving up. She said, no matter what happens, always remember that better days will come. One evening, as the family gathered for dinner, Nonso stood up and cleared his throat. Mama, he began, Osinachi and I have a surprise for you. A surprise? Uloma asked, her eyebrow raised in curiosity. Yes, Mama, Osinachi said, grinning. We've been working on something special for you. Nonso handed a beautifully wrapped box. Open it, Mama. With a mix of excitement and confusion, Uloma carefully unwrapped the box. Inside was a key. A key? She asked, puzzled. It's the key to your new house in the village. Nonso explained. We built it in Papa's memory. It's a place where you can visit and feel close to him again. Uloma's hand trembled as she held the key. Tears welled up in her eyes. You built a house for me? Yes, Mama, Osinachi said. It's your home, and it's a tribute to everything you and Papa did for us. The room felt silence as Uloma wiped her tears. My sons, she said, her voice filled with emotion. I don't have enough words to thank you. You've made me the happiest mother in the world. A week later, the family traveled to the village to see the house. When they arrived, Uloma was speechless. The house was grand, with a beautiful garden and a plaque at the entrance that read, in loving memory of Eguchuku. The villagers gathered to welcome them, marveling at the house and the family's success. Many of them had heard the story of Uloma's suffering and were overjoyed to see her happy again. This is incredible, one neighbor said. Uloma, your sons have truly honored you and your husband. Uloma walked through the house, running her hands over the wall and furniture. Though her sight had been restored, she still liked to feel things as a way of connecting with her surroundings. This house is more than I've ever dreamed of, she said. It feels like a part of your father is here with us. That evening, the family hosted a celebration at the new house. Friends, neighbors, and even distant relatives came to join in the festivities. There was music, dancing, and plenty of food. As the evening went on, Uloma stood to give a speech. The crowd felt silent, eager to hear her words. My dear friends and family, she began, her voice steady and filled with emotion. Today, my heart is full. There was a time when I thought my life was over, but God had other plans for me. She paused, looking at Nonso and Osinachi. I am proud of my sons. They have shown me that no matter how far we may drift apart, love will always bring us back together. The crowd erupted in applause, cheering for the family. As the celebration wound down, Uloma sat on the porch of her new home, watching the stars twinkle in the night sky. Nonso and Osinachi joined her, each holding a cup of tea. Mama, Nonso said, breaking the silence, are you happy? I am more than happy, Uloma replied. I am at peace. Osinachi smiled and said, you deserve all the happiness in the world, Mama. This is just the beginning. Uloma nodded, her heart full. She had endured pain and suffering, but it had all led to this moment, a moment of love, healing, and redemption. And so, the story came to full circle, proving that with faith, resilience, and forgiveness, even the darkest times can lead to a brighter tomorrow. The most important lesson in this story is that life is full of ups and downs. But never let envy or bitterness take over your heart. Instead, focus on your own journey and trust that your time will come. The story teaches us that forgiveness, love, and faith can heal even the deepest wounds. Always remember what is meant for you will never miss you, and kindness will always triumph over evil. And with that, my dear friends, our story comes to a close. But remember, the magic of storytelling lives on, waiting to whisk us away on new adventures, where the wonders of imagination know no bounds. Goodbye for now, and may your dreams be filled with joy, wonder, and endless possibility. Thank you so much for watching. Please kindly comment, like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more interesting stories.